into the world of magic mushrooms with Microdose U.
So Ben, welcome. So glad you're here. I have a feeling that you've got a bit of a story to share. So what you got there?
Yeah, let me jump right into it. I'm from Utah, and I guess where my story starts, I'd say August 22 is where life started getting somewhat interesting for me. I guess I come from somewhat of a religious community, and I don't know, going into in the later half of 2022, I just kind of got to a point in my life where it was an especially lonely period. So everyone in my family was far away. Parents were out of the country. They'd been doing a lot of traveling at the time, and my siblings didn't live in the state anymore, and my friends were far away. We were just in different seasons of life, it felt like. So it felt very lonely. And on top of that, I guess as far as, my worldview and kind of my faith to that point, it just, I don't know, I felt like some inconsistencies started to come up that just kind of I threw me into something of a, I guess you'd say, an existential crisis. And on top of that, just being a lonely period, I'd say I fell into something of it was a pretty dark time for me. Like I got pretty depressed, kind of secluded myself. I worked remotely at the time, so didn't have a ton of like interaction in the office or anything like that. So it felt very lonely. And I kind of just dug myself deeper. Yeah.
What kind of work? Share with us what kind of work you were doing at the time, and also share with us. I don't think you mentioned your age yet. So like this all happened around August 20. Everything started August 2022.
Yeah.
What were you doing, and how old were you about?
Yeah, so let's see, I'm 25 now. So at that time, I was 23, going on 24. And I had been up until just a few months ago, I had been self-employed at that time for the last few years. So I was kind of in the like Amazon selling space is where I was. So I was like selling products on Amazon.com, and I had been doing that for a little while till this point. And I'd been going well. I really liked the work. It gave me a lot of flexibility and everything. But yeah.
So, wait, do you mean you were just when you say you were in the Amazon space and selling products?
Uh-huh.
Tell us a little bit more about that. What does that mean? Like did you have your own products that you developed, or were you selling like other people's products? I just want to kind of
Yeah.
I just want to set the stage to like what Ben was doing in his life exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So at that point, I was selling other people's products. So it kind of evolved a lot over the years. So it started where I would go to like find discounts on things at like Walmart or Target, wherever it was. And this was when I was still in school, maybe like a year and a half before. And I'd flip them. At this point in August 2022, kind of at that point, a lot of it was like buying in bulk from distributors and wholesalers and that sort of thing, and reselling other people's brands on Amazon. And then later down the line, I started, experimenting with my own brand and private label type of stuff, and found some success with that as well. But yeah, I guess like for the time period where I was at, that's what I was doing, is like reselling a lot of people's products.
Could you make money with that?
Yeah. I mean, it was going. I mean, here's the thing. I was I was single, no family, low living expenses, right? Like more than anything, it was definitely enough to pay the bills, plus a little bit of savings, and I loved the flexibility that came with it. So that was nice. But I guess it did kind of seclude me in a way, away from like I was saying, I didn't have a ton of interaction with people in the office or things like that. So it kind of got lonely sometimes.
So okay, so I'm just trying to set the stage and picture this whole thing. So
Yeah.
I guess you're doing this out of your house pretty much, right?
Yeah, so I did at one point. Well, that was when I first started this, I was in my apartment in Provo, Utah, and I was doing it from there. And then I upgraded and moved into a townhome where I could do it out of the garage. So I was working out of my garage for a while. At this point, I had outsourced all of that. So I had it was a company that would handle my inventory. So I'd ship everything to them, and they'd kind of manage it, prep it, send it out to Amazon and that. So it was all remotely at this point, which was nice.
Okay, so that makes sense. So you're kind of doing this all by yourself, whether you're in your apartment or your townhouse, and orders are coming in, and you're fulfilling, or somebody else is fulfilling, but
Yeah.
you don't have a lot of interaction with other people.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so go ahead and continue then.
Yeah, so I suppose that Yeah, like I was saying, it felt lonely, and mix that with the existential crisis I was going through, where I was like, I don't know if God exists or like what's true, or it's something that is pretty common to a lot of people these days. There's definitely a lot of people going through that, wherever you are, right? Wherever you are in the country. So yeah, so that kind of compounded until I remember, especially around December, towards the later half of the year, it just been getting worse and worse. And that was especially hard because everyone came to town, and it's like everyone's there and happy. And I feel like I'm supposed to be happy because all my family's there and my friends are in town. But it was just hard. I didn't know, because up till that point I had been raised a certain way and had certain beliefs and everything, and it just, I didn't know if any of that was true anymore. And it really, that's tough when your worldview totally changes and you don't know what's true. So yeah.
How were you feeling every day? Would you say you had depression, anxiety? And if both of those or either of those, like how bad was it? Could you get out of the house and do things? Could you function, or was it like really debilitating? Give us an idea how
Yeah.
bad how bad you felt, and what you think it was also.
Yeah, it was bad. I didn't know how to handle it because honestly, up until that point in my life, I kind of had this like felt unstoppable in a ways. Like I was like very hustle, go, 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 on top of grades and school and work and just and so, I hadn't had anything like this happen before, so I didn't know how to deal with it at all, and I probably bottled up a lot of it, which I shouldn't have. And I remember it really just, where it hit its peak was, I remember at some point in December I broke down in front of my mom and I was just crying, and I was like, I don't know what's true, what all this is. I don't know if I even want to live anymore. And I don't know. Yeah, it's tough because I don't think I would have done anything like take my own life, but it was like there was definitely a strong feeling like I wish I just didn't exist right now. Like this is just a tough place to be, and I don't want to be here anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I can't, obviously I can't diagnose, but from what you're saying, it
Right.
sounds like
Right.
it was some pretty tough depression.
Yeah.
Did you seek any kind of like professional help from a therapist, talk therapy, pharmaceuticals, antidepressants, anything like that? I mean, and also, how did you said your
Right.
mom was right there. How did
Yeah.
your dad or both take? How did they take the
Yeah.
stand?
Yeah, that was my initial talk therapy. It was with my mom, and my sister had been through some similar things in her life as well. So, it helped to be able to relate to her and what she had gone through in the past. And she's doing great now. And at that time she was doing great. So that helped to know that I could get through it. I should say that I should have sought out some professional talk therapy. That was actually because my parents wanted me to, and I was like, but I was still kind of busy, and I was like, okay, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. That's actually been on my to-do list for like 2 years now, is go see a therapist, but things have improved since then. But I could still, with some things in my life, I could still see the benefit of it. So I think I'll at some point go into that. But yeah, I haven't seen a therapist yet.
So what did you do then? What did you do to get to at least start to try to get
Yeah.
through this? What route did you take?
Well, I hadn't been open with anyone up until I talked to my mom and my sister, and that helped a lot, just to like talk to family, close family, and I love my family. They've been there since the beginning for everything, and we're all very tight knit. So that definitely helped. But it was interesting. My something that happened that season, that holiday season, my brother gave me this pack of like THC gummies. And you have to remember that I up until that point I hadn't ever, the community I come from, it's very like no substances, no alcohol, no like even coffee or tea or anything like that. I um so I didn't have any intention of using those just because it was never part of my life. So, I took them home and I was like, cool, I'll have these. They're legal and everything. So I was like, I kind of just threw them on the shelf and
Wait,
went on with my.
did you say they are legal? Did you say
They
that?
they are legal. Yeah. The T like there's some kind of like loophole a lot of the I don't know much about it, but yeah, they're legal THC gummies that are legal everywhere.
Gotcha, like Delta 9 or something.
Yeah, Delta 9, yeah.
But is your brother, is he an older brother or younger brother? And was he, I guess, was he really in tune to using THC? Was he pretty experienced with THC?
No, now that you say it, no, he's not, and he wasn't. I think he found them somewhere, and I don't know why he gave them or what, if he was just being funny, but he was like, "Here, take these, enjoy." I'm like, "All right." So yeah, he's not, yeah, he doesn't get into it or anything with that, but yeah, and I didn't really use them for a while. I just kind of put them on the shelf and went on with life. It definitely, as far as the depression at that time and everything, the talking with family helped, at least, from where I was, and that helped go on a little bit more. And I guess it was February, a couple months later, where I was just home. I remember I was in a pretty good mood. I know and I was, these things had been sitting on my shelf for a while. So I was like, what the hell? I'm bored tonight. I'm in a pretty good mood. I'm not feeling depressed as much right now or anything. So I'll just try this. And it said, I know the package, it says start with a half a gummy and then go up from there. So I did that. I started with a half, and then I was like, what is the worst that could happen if I just popped the other half? So I took a whole gummy for my first time. It's 15 milligrams of Delta 9. And so I'd never done this before. Well, I did do it once actually in high school. That was like a total accident when I accidentally got really stoned in high school with a but this is the first time that I intentionally did this. And this was like years later. So, um, and it was amazing. It was like, it was a little anxious at first. Oh yeah. Are you raising your, oh, okay. It was a little, it was a little anxious at first because I was unfamiliar with the feelings. And I called my sister, who's a doctor, and I was like, "Oh, my head is floating away. I think it's gonna explode. I don't know what's happening right now." And she's kind of familiar with this stuff. So she was like, "Hey, just lean into it, listen to some music, eat some food." So had no idea what the munchies were or anything like that. But wow, it was the most amazing night. It opened my mind. Everything became like food and music and dancing, and my thoughts took on a higher meaning. And I felt like I honestly just like I loved life, and I felt like I loved myself, and I hadn't felt that for it felt like it'd been a while since I'd felt like I loved my life and myself. And so it just kind of opened my mind in a way. And I that was kind of a turning point because I remember before that point having at times feelings of existential dread or depression, but I'd never felt it to the same magnitude since that time. So it kind of opened, and that experience opened me up to the idea of using, other substances like psilocybin, for example. And yeah.
So after the 15 milligram trip, it
Yeah.
sounds like it was wonderful. I mean, it sounds like that almost changed your life. But did you do any more THC soon after that, or or you just mentioned something about
Yeah.
psilocybin? Or did you kind of go right into trying psilocybin? What was kind of the timeline?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, I mean, the psilocybin was later on, probably like maybe 6 months later. But yeah, I did do I don't know. I was hesitant. I was careful with them. I didn't want to just like jump in using it every day. I think I did it like again a couple months later. And that time it felt a little more anxious. And I don't know. I was kind of self-experimenting. I didn't know how to handle these things all the way. And so the second time I did it was a little bit anxious, and I didn't touch it for a while after that. And until one of my roommates actually, she uses it a fair amount, and like turns out we didn't know that we were both just getting high in our rooms on these gummies like during the same timeline. And so we got onto that, and we were talking about it more, and we were just like, no way, you get high in your room on the gummies? And I'm like, no way, I do too.
So
And so
um if you have, you say you have a roommate, if you have got a
yeah.
kitchen or common place where you're storing food, I would think that probably if you were both on gummies, you would like down in the kitchen, not even intentionally, but meeting down in the kitchen like 11 p.m. and just opening that
Right.
Sounds crazy. That's what I figured probably would happen.
Yeah, we never crossed paths before we both found out that we were doing it, but we definitely crossed paths a lot in the kitchen after that. And midnight munchie snacks together and things like that. So lots of fun, good times, just getting high on gummies and eating food.
Well, that sounds like a pretty nice weekend to me. So it sounds like you started feeling better almost right away from the cannabis gummies. Um, what made you then start to try and experiment a little bit with psilocybin? And tell me a little bit about that, how that took place.
Yeah. So with the psilocybin, I guess a couple where we are right now in the story, a couple years before that was the first time my sister, the one who I called when I was really anxious, who's the doctor, she had been experienced with some of these plant medicines like psilocybin and things like that. And I remember she offered me some a couple years ago, but I wasn't in a place for it. I didn't understand it all the way. And to me, it was just like, I'm not doing drugs. Like, you're offering me drugs. I don't want to do drugs. And so I just wasn't open to it at that time. But at this point, I had been doing, and this was even before the cannabis, I had been doing some of my own personal research, kind of a lot of the really interesting things that they're finding at universities around the clinical and therapeutic use of psilocybin and things like that. That I had done a lot of research on that, and that made me more interested in being open to it and giving it a go. So so yeah, I guess it was a few months after, I had been using the cannabis regularly, and that had helped. Just I guess it just like opened up my worldview a little bit, the cannabis. And so with the psilocybin, I remember the first I my sister was she kind of coached me through a lot of like how to approach this. She's like, just start very small, see how you react to it and everything. So I started with a couple of really light doses, probably like zero point 0.3 grams at first of like a golden teacher strain, and then moved up to a gram at one point. And those were really good, just kind of very, I don't know, the world just glowed a little bit. I just felt like good and happy about myself, and I felt like I don't know. I guess I've heard people say that with mushrooms you'll know when to do a higher dose when they call to you, and I kind of felt that a few months later around like August 2023. So I guess this is a year after the story started. Kind of felt the mushrooms calling me to do a larger trip. So I did 3.5 grams of Golden Teacher. That was the first time I did a larger trip. And that was just that totally changed my life. I look back a year later, and it's just, I don't know, there's been so much more peace in my life since then. And I one of the biggest takeaways from that first trip was like all the things I dealt with these existential crisis and thoughts of God and what is their life after death and all these things that got to me. It's just none of that mattered during that. It was just the world was so beautiful, and I felt like I was just so profoundly grateful for life, just for its own sake, life and existence for its own sake. I was like, it doesn't matter. The thoughts that kept coming were, it doesn't matter like what happens after this, all that, like, that you're here right now and you can enjoy the world and life and your relationships and everything in it to the fullest, and then come what may afterwards, right? So and also up until that point, I'd never seen how beautiful the place that I live is. It's it just has a glow to it, and I've noticed that every day since. Like, I know Utah's beautiful, and I'd seen that growing up, but it just like it on a deeper level, you see it when you're under the influence of psilocybin. And I've just kind of seen that glow since then. I just love, like, whether I'm on psilocybin or not, I love going on walks more. I go on a walk every day by my house. There's a lake near my house, and it's just it's so, yeah, I love it.
I love that story, Ben. I'm just curious. So the very first time you went ahead and did the dose of psilocybin, which sounds like what you said, I think 0.3 grams, 300 milligrams, which by the way is a very high end. I don't know if you were trying to microdose, but that's like a high end of
Yeah.
almost getting into like a like a
Right.
bit of tiny bit of a larger dose. But my question is, um, did you have any type of like intent or goal? Like what did you do it for? Why did you do it, and what did you expect to get out of it? It's, at least that very first time, what were you expecting? What did you want?
Well, I guess I have a very curious nature. And I don't know, I'm very inquisitive about the world, and things just interest me. And so that was a big part of it. I just like at that point I had tried the cannabis and I was like, well, that was a cool experiment. That brought some good into my life. So I was kind of like, well, what can I do next? So that I guess that was the idea is I yeah, I just yeah, I'm very inquisitive. And there sorry, there was like a kind of a second half to your question if you want to.
No, I think the questions were just like, what was your intent? What did
Yeah, okay.
you want to see like come out of that? You know,
Yeah, yeah, and as far as intent, I mean, I was very open to it. That's what I had been told is like if you're doing one of these larger trips, just be like be open to the experience. Don't try to control it. So I don't know if I had I as far as intent, I mean, I had heard and read a lot of literature on people improving their lives and seeing improved mental health. So I'd say I guess you could say that was one of the intents, but I was kind of open to the experience, whatever was going to happen, because I didn't really have any expectations for it going into it.
so it sounds like to me it was more like curiosity. You just you heard
Yeah.
about it, you
Yeah.
researched a lot about it, and you were just curious to see like
Totally.
where this would take you. That's what it sounds like you were trying to do, and it sounds like it worked out better than you ever bargained for. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, no, it totally has. I've done a few trips since then. I've probably done 2 to 3 larger trips. Kind of same thing, just as it calls to me. As you know, sometimes I'll do smaller trips now and again, and I kind of get a feeling when I do those if I feel like I should do a larger trip. Usually it's around every like 3 to 4 months or so. I'll do a larger trip is kind of what I've felt. But yeah, since I've had that, it's yeah, there's just I don't know, my relationships have improved, my income has more than tripled, and I'm not saying this is all causation of psilocybin, right? There's a lot that goes into that, and I've seen a lot of I got to travel a lot more, and once again, not like a direct cause of psilocybin, but I think it's definitely had a positive improvement in my life that I've seen in various spheres of life.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know if it's not a direct cause because psilocybin does start to
Mhm.
wire your brain, and I don't think it's just hard for me to believe that all of these things that have happened, everything feels more beautiful to you. Your relationships are better.
Yeah,
Look
yeah,
up, at the landscape here in Utah, and just looks so much more beautiful. Um,
yeah.
I don't think that's coincidental. I think in my opinion, I think psilocybin had a very large role in that. I would say.
Yeah, yeah, I guess, yeah, I would say so too. It's definitely led me to, I guess, be more inquisitive and curious in other spheres of my life, you know? So it's kind of led to making key decisions with some of these other things.
Um, what are you doing now? You say like a larger dose, maybe every 4 months or so, but are you microdosing in between, or are you just only doing larger doses?
Uh, I've mostly just done larger doses, and honestly, I would love a little crash course from you on microdosing because yeah, I mean I've heard about people reaping the benefits of that, but I guess I haven't done as much research into a good regime or kind of not regime but regimen.
Regimen, yeah.
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 On microdosing.
We can. Oh well, you're. I think you're talking to the right person. We get. I
Yeah, I think so.
things, and offline we live literally probably, I don't know, 25 minutes away from each other, so something like
Right, right.
we could certainly talk about that. I'd be
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's yeah, no, that's definitely one of the like because I'm really into music as well. So that's something I've noticed when like for the creative parts of my life. I love to write music and play music. And that's something I've noticed is like when I'm on psilocybin or just like a small dose, it's so much easier to get into the groove and feel the emotion and the sounds of the music coming together and yeah, I think microdosing could be a big part of that. Could help with that.
There's probably no question about that one. Somebody that's either listening to us now, if they're watching us on the video, which some people might be curious to see what does this guy Ben look like? We want to see him. So some people could be watching on YouTube, of course. What would you say to somebody that's kind of in going through a tough time in their life and maybe going through some mental health issues, depression, anxiety? They're having a tough time with relationships. They just don't maybe they don't love where they are. What would you say to them? What would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's a tough question just because everyone's circumstances are so different. I'm definitely not a trained, psychologist or therapist or anything like that.
This is I make it clear on every episode. This is
Okay, okay.
advice. Don't worry. We're not gonna say Ben recommends Dr.
Okay, okay.
No,
Yeah,
not a healthcare professional, but just from what you've been through and at
yeah,
age 25, you've got your most of your life still ahead of you.
right.
You've changed your life in basically 2 years or so. So
Yeah,
there are a lot of other people out there.
right.
You don't have to go out on the limb and go crazy, but there are a lot of other people out there that are really, really struggling every
Yeah,
single due to various things that have happened in their life.
yeah.
What do you think?
I guess I would say probably the biggest thing for me, if you're in a situation that's similar to mine or my story or where I've been, just try to be open-minded is like the biggest thing. Because I'd say where my story started is I was kind of in this box that I had been conditioned and raised in, and a lot of it is good, There's a lot of good that came from everything that I was raised with and that my parents and community and everything taught me, but there comes a time when you kind of have to just find the beat of your own drum. And for me, that was just being open-minded enough to get experimental enough, and you want to be safe. I do a lot of reading, so I was very, I read a lot before I got into any of this, and I don't want to hurt myself or harm myself, so I was very careful, but yeah, kind of that open-mindedness has just, and like being willing to consider that everything might be wrong, and maybe it's not. Who knows? I don't know. There's truth everywhere, but that's been huge for me, is just being open-minded enough to like try things out just a little bit, and then that kind of leads to down the road to other things and to more, and as far as some of these plant medicines and things like that go, maybe it's something for you, especially if you're listening to this to this show, then you're probably already a little bit interested in this, so be open-minded enough to try it out.
You know, a lot of people that are non-spiritual and not religious at all get into using psilocybin, and they all of a sudden become much more spiritual and religious, and they're really believing in God more, and they just feel much more connected with the universe. uh
Yeah,
Tell us what happened as far as your religion. Do you feel like has religion come back into your life? And there's no right or wrong answer, but is it
right.
back into your life more? Are you still distancing yourself a little bit from it? Where do you stand there now?
um I mean, as far as my religious identity, I don't know. I haven't completely thrown it out or anything. There's so many parts of that are just make up who I am. I learned so much of what I still hold to from that worldview growing up. But as far as like where I am now, I guess I kind of just, I don't know. I find a lot of peace in not knowing. It was weird because at the time, my whole thing was like, I don't know what is true, what is not, and that kind of led to the ultimate conclusion for myself, which was I don't really need to know. I know what I know, and is there a God? Is there not a God? I'm not 100% sure on either one, but it's like I hope so. Like a part of me like really hopes so, right? And I hope there's an afterlife, and that's kind of, it's like the bonus rounds after this life, if there are, right? But what I do know is that we're here now, and I feel, especially under the influence of psilocybin, and when I'm here now, I kind of feel more this interconnectedness of love. So if there is a God, I think it might have something to do with that, kind of this love energy that is out there. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna say whether there like is a God or isn't. I just don't know, but I feel so peaceful in that. Like I feel like I don't need to know. I know what I know, and I love life, and that's enough for me.
I actually love that answer. It like, no, really realizing that you don't know, but it's okay not to know, and you find tremendous peace with that. Like I'm not really, and I'll tell you something else, Ben. I don't know if anybody on this planet, there's nobody on the planet that knows 100%. I mean, I don't care what people say, nobody knows with 100% what's going on. You
Right.
know, and but the fact that you came to the realization that I don't know, but it's all fine. I'm just living the best life I can, enjoying everything. And I think that was a great answer. I really like that. What about now? Where are you going? What are you doing? What are your plans for the future if you have them? And it's okay not to have them because, you know, again, super young and you pretty much can do whatever you want in your life, I think. But what do you see going on now and into the future?
Yeah, I guess going into the future, I started a new job that I love and is amazing. I work still in the Amazon space at an Amazon agency right now. So it's really cool. I love it. I consult big brands and small brands on, and manage a lot of their Amazon sales and things like that. So that's awesome. That's one aspect of the career going forward that I've been enjoying at least for now. I am really interested in just this space overall, the psilocybin, and I think there's so many people who can benefit from this, and like to me, I don't know, it's not about like money in this space like obviously there's money to be made, and I think a lot of big pharma is seeing that and everything, but it doesn't like I don't know, that doesn't call to me as much as just there's a lot of people who can benefit from it. So I am interested in the future in, talking more about this with whoever wants to listen, right? So that's a big part of this. Maybe, blogging a bit and all of that and just kind of see where it goes.
Well, that sounds great. What we can do then, if it's up to you, but I'd be happy to put your contact information in the show notes. If anybody does have questions for you, wants to get in touch with you, that'd be fine with me. If you want to remain more private, that's also totally fine. We can talk about this after the show, and if they're
Okay.
there, that'll be great.
Okay,
Um,
awesome.
and I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I mean, it takes a lot of guts for somebody to come on camera and in front of on a microphone and share the real dark and tough times they've been through. So I applaud you for that, and I'm glad that you are where you are now, because your smile is beautiful, and you just look like you're in a really really good positive place. And so thanks so much, Ben, for being here, and we'll have you back sometime. Anytime you want to come back and share more of your story, you're absolutely more than welcome. It's great to have you. Good to have you as kind of a neighbor down I-50.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I love connecting with you and just this is great. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed this.
You're very welcome. I have a feeling we have a lot more to talk about, so this won't be the last time you're here. So
For sure, for sure. We'll talk again.
until next time, Ben. Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.